Okay, so let's see the practical application we are going to develop now.
Awesome, right? So with that, now you can run the app, right? So let's run and see the app now. So if I click the run button, right, it should run and give a very smooth output. So it says build your first app, enter the message where I can say hello, right, and then click the send button.
Okay, so let's continue to develop this application now.
Hi everyone. So lesson is Android, build your first app. We'll be using Android Studio version 4.0 1 for practicals and Android developer docs and API referencing. You need to have a knowledge about Java before you do this lesson. Have a look at the link below if you need some lessons about Java. In this session, you will learn about creating an Android project, running your app, creating and managing virtual devices, and build a simple user interface. Lesson plan is going to be practical demonstrations, right? Okay, so let's start. So in order to do this, we'll be referring the Android developer docs. So what you have to do is you have to do a Google search about Android developer docs. Now, why are we using Android developer docs? That is because that is how real world developers do their development, right? So they are referring the developer docs. So when you go into developer docs, right, you search, you get the link, right? Then you can see option there to build your first app over here, right? So when you click on that, right, you get overview, right, overview section, and in below that you will see creating an Android project. So if you click on that, you will see that you have to start a new Android project, right, and create a new project, right? So let's do that now, right? So let me start the Android Studio. So it's starting, and once it gets loaded, we'll click start a new Android Studio project, right? And then I got couple of templates. I'll be selecting empty activity, and that's the same mentioned here in the developer docs, empty activity. So let me click next, right? And then I have to give a name for my project and a location, right, and a package. Let's do it now. So give the location and give a name and give a package and select the language. So we'll be using Java language as a syntax, and then the minimum SDK to support, right? Those keep, you can keep them as the default ones, right? So let's click finish, right? So now it's creating the project. It will take a few seconds for it to do it. Okay, I'm getting the tip of the day. Let me close it, right? Awesome. So the project got created with some basic skeleton code. So you can see as soon as the project started, it says certain processes are running, indexing, and the Gradle build has started, right? And likewise, so a few activities are happening. So just make sure to look at the status bar below to see whether all the activities are done. Okay, so once the project skeleton gets created, so let's just look at the developer doc. So yeah, so we have followed it and it got created, and then it talks about a few things, tools. It talks about main activity and the XML file and the manifest. Let's take one by one. So if you look here, if you go into Java and your package, you can see the main activity.java, right? So this is where you write the logic in Java, right? So say if there's a click event, those stuff you will be writing in the .java file, right? And then in that's in the Java. Then in app layout, you got the XML file. So that means over here in the app resources layout, you got the activity main.xml file, right? That is the XML file which defines the layout, right? It contains a text view element, right, with the text hello world, right? See, as you can see, there's a text called hello world, right? And it says it contains a text view. What is this activity main XML? That is the layout. So this is where you declare the interface. Say for example, if you want a button, if you want a text box, you put it here, and in the previous Java file you will be writing the logic. So you will design the button here, you will put the button here, you will drag and drop the button into the XML, but then if there's a click event, you will be writing it over here. So that is what these two files are, right? The .java file is to write the logic, XML file is to design the interface, right? Very important for you to keep that in mind. And in the XML file, you this if you look at the mouse, it's you are in the design, you can look at the code behind the design. So the if you drag and drop, so for example there's a label here, so if you want to see what that is, you can click on code, then you can see that it's a text view, and that's what it says here, that it got a text view, right? So this is the code behind the GUI, right? Once again, you can go to the design. So this is the design, and this is the code written, and the GUI code is written or auto generated using XML, right? So the now you understand that the design uh, is based on XML, right? And the logic is in another file which is written based on Java, right? So that is how these files get connected to each other. Now let's look at the developer doc again, right? And then you got a manifest.xml, app manifest. So that's here. So in the manifest, you got a manifest.xml where I declare certain configurations, and we will see what are those one by one, right? It declares fundamental characteristics of the app, right? Defines. We'll see what it is. And then you got Gradle scripts, the build.gradle. So over here you can see the Gradle scripts, the build.gradle. So this is the build script, which means when you are compiling this app, it will run these Gradle scripts to compile the app, to build the app, right? So we call them as build scripts, right? So you got two main files here, project module, right? And it just gives explanation about what components are inside that. Awesome. And then what the developer doc says is, now you can run your first app, right? It got a text view with the message hello, right? Okay, awesome. With the hello world, you can, so you just saw it, right? If you go to the, let's go, now I'm in the Android manifest, so I have to go to the layout XML, and then you can see the hello world, and if you go to the code, you can see the text view which contains a text called hello world. So that's how they all match with each other, right? So then in order to run, it says click on, so the run app. So to run, it says you can either run it on real device. So for example, if you have connected your real Android device or the Android mobile phone into the computer, right? You just have to enable the USB debugging, right? So it gives you the instructions here how to enable it, right? And if you enable it and connect it to this computer, right? And then you will see that real device being connected when you try to run the app, right? So from over here, let me show it to you. So when you try to run the app from here, right, you will see that the real device will get connected, right? So if I click the run button, right, let's see what happened. So I click the run button, and uh, you can see at the bottom it's running the Gradle build script, because when you say run, right, it's using the Gradle scripts to compile, build, and run, right? So okay, so it says Gradle invocation finish, Gradle build finish, right? But the thing is, now I have not connected, right? I have not connected a device, right? So real device, right? And it says event log over here, right? So if I click, it gives me an error, right? Why is this happening is I have not connected. Let's click on this, right? So I have not connected the real device, right? So if I connected it, when I click here, it will load it and run it on my real mobile device. So what's the other option? So the other option is, right, you can run it on an emulator. So instead of having, if you don't have a real Android mobile device, what you can do is you can run it on an emulator. So you have to create a virtual device, right? So you have to create a virtual device. So if I click on this link about creating a virtual device, right, it takes you to this link, right? So how to do it? You have to go to tools and AVD manager. Let's do it now. So I have to go to tools, and AVD manager. That's where you create a virtual device, right, for you to run this, right? Okay, and then it says it explains a little bit about what are these virtual devices. So basically they are virtual mobile devices or the virtual mobile phone, so that you don't have to have a real device to run this while you are developing. If you want to test it, you can run it on a virtual device, right? So it has a hardware profile, it has a system image, right? So it's talking about what this is, right? System image labeled with Google APIs, and so on and so forth. It has a storage area, and then it says how to create so you can read this on your interest, right? So just make sure to read that on your interest. And creating a virtual device, it says click create virtual device, right? So over here there's option C, create virtual device. So if I click that, it loads this screen. Now let's read the developer docs. So you can select a device, right? Right, and then you have to select the image in the process, right? It recommends certain images, it says. Then it says you have to click the download, right? Likewise, right? Okay, so let's follow that, right? So now over here, right, so I have been asked, right? So um, let's keep, let's click on this, and one more thing, right? So if I cancel this once again, there's already a device, sitting here, right? So let me click on actions. Let's delete that, right? Okay, now let's create a new virtual device. Let's keep the default values, right? And let's click next. So this is the real hardware. You select the hardware. Let's say you select Pixel 2 device, right? Okay, and click next. And then you have to download the image, right? So for it to run, right? So uh, let's see what are the recommendations. It talks about the images, right? Least recommended images. The other tab includes more. Okay, so it talks a little bit, right? It says x86 images run the fastest in the emulator. So it's talking about running x86 images, the devices, right? And it talks about API level, right? The target device. Let's read a little bit about this. So let's look into this, right? Okay, so it says it runs fast on x86 images. So let's select this, right? The download, click on that. So you have to accept the agreements and click next, right? So you are downloading the images. So it will take a little bit of time, right? And it's a bit larger download. Let's give it a little bit of time for it to download the image. So the installation completed, right? And let's click on the finish button, right? Okay, and then what you have to do is that you have to click, make sure it's selected and click next, right? And then here you can add further configurations. You can, you can go click on show advanced settings. You can specify how much of RAM this virtual device should have, likewise, right? Let's click finish now, right? So once you click finish, your virtual device is ready, right? So now you don't need a real device. You can just click on the virtual device and run, right? So let's click on launch this, right? So let's click on this. So what happens is it will launch this virtual device. In the meantime, we will go and read the Apple developer docs, right? Okay, so talks about this, we finished this, right? And it talks about hardware profiles where you can, create, you can edit existing virtual devices, right? Likewise, right? So this developer docs is very comprehensive, right? So feel free to read this on your own interest, right? As a good developer, it's good to read it, the important parts of this, right? It talks about AVD properties, right? A lot, as I said, for example, the RAM, likewise the heap and SD card, how much you can configure everything in this emulator, right? Okay, right? So now this is the output of the emulator, right? So this is the virtual device which got created, so that you don't need a real device to check this, right? And now let's look back. So run on emulator and developer docs, right? Select it and click the run button, right? Awesome, right? So So what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to come back to the app and I'm going to click the run button again. So this time when I click run, it will run this on the virtual simulator, or the emulator which got created. Look at the, when I click the run button from here, I click the run button, look at my mouse, and then you can see it's installing. Installing means this app is getting installed to the virtual device, right? It says installation successful. Let's click and keep on the virtual device. Now you can see your first app, right, has successfully loaded into the virtual device. So this is how you test your app, whether it's running, right? So if this is running in this virtual device, and then once you finish developing this app, what you do is you can connect your real device, right? And while the debugging is enabled, right, and then your app will be pushed to the real device as well, right? So this is very interesting, right? And you can see that hello world, and this is the title of your app. Build your first app is the title of my project. So that's what is here, right? Let's see what's next in the developer docs. The next thing in the developer doc is to build the simple user interface, right? So that means now you got a simple output, but it's further going to customize this now, right? So if I click on building the simple user interface, you will be taken into this. So this example, the first app is going to have a interface with a text box and a button called send, right? So the idea is the user can type a message and click the send button, right? So now it's talking how to do this, right? So for this you can use Android Studio layout editor, right? That's what it's talking here, right? And so what, so there's a bit of explanation, right, which I will talk about this, right? So this is about component organizations, right? So I will come into that, right? But now you got your first app running. So now we got the app to this stage. So what we are going to do is we are going to complete this remaining part of this app in the next lesson, right? So let's go and have a look at the slides now. So we covered up to this point, right? So we created a virtual device and we managed to run the app, right? So we did the practical demonstration, and conclusion is we did up to that level, right? References, we use Android developer docs and API. What's next? It's very important to have a look at the next lesson to complete this app, right? So also have a look at the other video practicals on Android A to Z. So we are very excited to see you in the next lesson to complete this app, and see you in the next lesson.